Good morning, David with RapidMaterials here. Today we're going to show you how to install Zambelli gutters. Since we're all still working at home for the most part, and I need new gutters in my house, we're going to show you how to install these on the back porch of my house. We've already done the front, so I've had a chance to see how the assembly goes together. It's really pretty easy, pretty simple, great common sense stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. Now, it rained last night. We're in Georgia. We have 99% humidity at the moment, so I'm going to sweat a little bit. Don't get offended. Okay, on this porch we have a couple of interesting conditions. One is we have a section of vertical roof, which you can see right here. It comes down, it's going to dump into a short section of gutter, turn a corner, turn another corner, and then we're going to come down along the porch here. And then we have a nice long stretch that goes to the back of the house, and then we'll have a downspout right out there towards the corner that's going to come down and feed down the back side of the wall. Now, the gutter that was here before came down this side of the wall, but unfortunately it dumps into a place where it's the base of a wall, and we don't want a lot of water there. So we're going to relocate that. Okay, so today to do this installation, we're going to need some basic tools. One of the more important things you're going to need is going to be a drill and screw gun. If you have a drill that can be used as a screw gun, that is fine. Just make sure when you're running screws, you set your torque so you don't over torque your screws. You're going to need at least a hacksaw to cut the gutters and downspouts. I'm going to use a Sawzall, and we'll talk more about that later. Blade selection is very important. You'll need a pair of snips, drill bits of various sizes, a rivet tool, a pair of channel locks, rubber mallet is very important, tape measure, string line, and you will need a Sharpie. Don't use a pencil because marking painted surfaces with pencil can lead to some issues later on. So use a Sharpie, and a square comes in real handy. So if I've missed anything, we will talk about it later, and there'll be an explanation of why we need it. So one of the things that's important to think about when you're installing gutters is gutter drainage and slope. We all know that water runs downhill, so we want to guide our water downhill to the termination point, which in this case is going to be the downspout that we're going to put way down at this end. So we need to calculate slope. And a recommended slope for this gutter system is going to be about 1/8 of an inch for every 4 feet. So what we need to do is first get a measurement of the length of our gutter. I'm actually going to start at this point right here and ignore this because I go up a little bit higher here as I need to. We're going to calculate our downslope from here to here, all the way down to here. So let's get some measurements. Okay, so we measured our eaves for our gutters. The short section is 10'9". The long section is 22 feet 2. So now we're going to calculate how much we need to drop. We're going to do the 10'9" section first. So we take 10'9" inches, which is 10.75 feet, and we're going to divide that by 4 feet. So clear that out. And 10.75 divided by 4 equals 2.6875. And then we're going to multiply that times our factor of drop, which is 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. So times 0.125, that equals 0.335 inches. So for one end of that gutter, we're going to drop 0.335 inches, which is just a little bit under 3/8 of an inch. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is measure the eave and make sure that the eave is actually level, because we're going to set our gutter hangers to that slope, and we got to make sure that we're setting it to a real slope. Now, I'm pretty positive that this end of our eave is lower than the back here in the corner. So I got my laser level out, and we're going to check this really quick. So measuring from the bottom, at this end we're just a hair under 42 inches, actually 41 7/8. And at this end we're at 43 inches. So this is sloping the wrong way, 7/8 of an inch. So we've got to do a little ciphering and make sure that we get this right when we start setting our hangers. Okay, so we've got a 10'9" section of fascia here. We're going to start at 1/4 inch on the right hand side, and we want to slope down this way. However, this end is 1.1/8 too high. So we've got to do a little bit of math. I know that this fascia board measures 5.5 inches. 5.5 minus 0.25, which means that this is going to be marked at 5 1/4 inch. And then if it was perfect, we'd go to 5 1/4 at that end, but we're losing something, so we need to add. And that marks it at 6 1/2 inches. Obviously, that's not going to work. Okay, since we found out that we have a negative slope on the fascia, what we're going to do is we're going to set our string line so that the top of our bracket is going to be at the top of the fascia on this end. And then we're going to go down to this end, and we're going to set our string line so that it is going to be 3/8 above our laser mark, so we can accurately get that down slope, and nice laser level comes in real handy. So bear with me, we'll get this figured out. Okay, so at this end of the eave, I actually hung my tape measure on the fascia board and set my laser level so that the laser is hitting the tape measure right at the 20-inch mark. Because we have to have a drop coming from this end to the other end, we're going to come down to this end here, and we're going to measure up from the laser level 20 inches and then subtract our 3/8 of an inch, or in this case we're probably going to cheat it just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch. So we'll set our mark at 19 3/4 of an inch from the laser mark, and that should give us some drop. Not quite as much as I'd like, but we don't want to lose too much before we get around to the other end of the gutter. Okay, now we're going to set a screw at our mark here. And this screw will set one of our string line. I've already set a screw at the other end. So now we're going to put a string line on it, and it needs to be very taut. You don't want any sag in the string at all. So let's do that next. Okay, since I've got to start with a corner miter location, I want to make sure that I have adequate space for a bracket. I do want to have a bracket on the miter to help support it. And there's going to be, of course, a coupler or a gutter connector at that location. So I just want to kind of set it together and see how far from the end I can go. And it looks like about 1.5 inches. So we're going to start our first hanger at 1.5 inches from the end of the fascia. So when we set the gutter hangers, we're going to have to do a little prep before we put them up there. If you notice on the hanger, you have a tab that goes at the fascia side, and there's a tab that goes out at the lip of the gutter side. The screw holes are behind this tab, and ideally this tab would rotate out of the way, but it doesn't rotate. So you're just going to have to bend it down about 90 degrees, and with your screw gun, you probably need to bend this out a little bit as well so you have space to do it. Okay, and the other thing that we need to note is the string line that we put up there is going to line up with the top of the back side of the bracket. So we set the bracket on the fascia. We want the string to just kiss the top of this, and then we're going to fasten it using both screw holes. And we'll do that all the way down the roof line. Okay, so whenever you put screws into wood, you should usually pre-drill them. And because pre-drilling requires I have 2 tools on the ladder, I'm going to do a little cheat, and I'll show you that. So what I'm going to do is get up here on the ladder. I'm going to set my bracket where it belongs, so it's just kissing the screw. And then I'm going to mark my screw hole spots. And just run a screw in to get it started. Make sure it's not splitting. If it starts to split at all, then you need to pre-drill it. If it's not splitting, shouldn't be a problem. Make sure that thing's vertical. Two screws in, take and bend the back tab back up as vertical as you can get it, and we're ready to set up the next hanger. Story stick works real simple. Set it against the edge of the bracket. Mark the end of it. Set it someplace where you can grab it real easy next time around. Get your next bracket. We're going to bend the tabs again. Take our Sharpie. Set it right where it needs to go. Mark it. We'll drill our little pilot holes. All looks good. Then tabs up. Move on to the next one. Okay, in this corner behind me, we're going to use a nice prefabricated corner miter, but I do want to have hangers on either side of this to help support it. It's actually pretty sturdy with the gutter connectors on it. They have a little piece of the tube here that slides into it, and it will help reinforce the gutter at the leading edge, but it's still a little bit of a possibility it can sag in the corner, and since I don't want that, I'm going to put a gutter hanger here and a gutter hanger here. So what I want to do is measure how far out from the corner that hanger needs to be, and I'm going to put that at about 9 inches from either corner. Okay, so we got this corner gutter hanger in place. Because the hanger next to it was only about 6 or 7 inches away, I actually took it and moved it and used it in the corner. Again, our rule of thumb is we want to be 24 inches on center. This is going to be a little bit wider. It's going to be okay. I do live in Georgia, so we really have no snow load to speak of. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to set our gutter hangers on this long stretch that goes all the way to the end. I've already put my level on it, and it is from one corner to the other corner exactly level. There is a little bit of a hump in the middle, but that's okay because we're going to use our string line to set our hangers. We're not measuring off the fascia. I should note this house is 45 years old, so there's going to be some settling and moving, and that's going to be very common in any house that's more than 2 or 3 years old. Okay, well, we've got all of our gutter hangers up for the main parts of the gutter. We're going to go ahead and start installing gutters. And where we're going to start is at the corner miter where our 2 sections of gutter begin. It's going to be a little bit easier to work both directions instead of trying to feed into it and jiggle it around. So let's get started with that. All right, Zambelli gutters come in 2 lengths, 10 feet and 18 feet. And as you see, I'm going to be using one 18-footer here and a 10-footer, and then going to need about another 4 feet to finish the long gutter, and we'll get to that in a little bit. First thing we want to do is get the 18-footer prep to go up first. Because it's longer, it's a little bit more difficult to handle. We're going to go ahead and pre-install the miter on one end of it, and then we'll carry it up and install it. Okay, to install the corner miter, we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need a gutter connector with a ferrule. Screwdrivers are just in case we need to modify anything a little bit. Screw gun pop rivet, some pre-painted pop rivets, obviously the miter, and a piece of gutter. Now, Zambelli gutters and downspouts are shipped with a protective film masking on them. We got to pull that masking off now. If we were going to cut this gutter or we were going to install an outlet in it, we'd leave the masking on until that's already done. So I've just set the gutter up here and rested it in place. I haven't bent any of the tabs because at this end we got to work it in and fit it into its hanger on the other side of the miter there. So we'll get that taken care of and then we'll go to the next step. So the Zambelli universal gutter end cap is designed to snap on the end of the gutter. It doesn't require any sealant. It has a little gasket in it that has barbs on it to help hold it in place. Sometimes they fall out in shipping. If they do, you just put it back in, but make sure that the barbs are pointed towards the end cap. So you just take it and squeeze it into place and all is good. Now the other thing you need to do is you need to cut off the tab that's on the back side of the gutter. So we know on this gutter, here's the front, here's the back. We're going to cut off this tab. Simple as that. Now the end cap, I found it kind of works easiest if you take the tab that's left and center it over the bulb, and then just kind of slide the gutter in. What you're trying to do is get the bend in the sheet metal on the inside of the gutter and the gasket on the outside of the gutter. So once you have it located where it needs to be, take your rubber mallet, pop it on, and that's on and that's secure, and that will stay in place for many years. Next thing we want to do is take our drop outlet and put it on the gutter. So if we hold the gutter up like this, the drop outlet faces with the star out, and it actually hooks into the lip of the gutter, rolls around, get it centered where you want it, and then take the two tabs on the back and fold them into the gutter. Now if you know for sure that this drop outlet's not going to have to move sideways a little bit, I would take a pair of channel locks and give it a little crimp right there. But because I've got a 2.5 foot angle back towards the wall that I've got to accommodate, I'm going to leave this one just a little bit loose so I can adjust it if I need to. At this point, this is just about ready to install. The only other thing we're going to do is take this ferrule and put it where it belongs. And we're going to take and put a pop rivet on the top of it. And now it is ready to install, and again the pop rivet just keeps the ferrule from sliding when we're sliding it into the other gutter, and that'll save you a lot of headaches when you're up on the ladder. So let's grab our connector and our piece of gutter, and we're going to go up the ladder and install this. Okay, we've got the gutter hung on the long stretch all the way back to the outlet, end caps on, connectors on, ready to hang a downspout on that end. We left this other end of the gutter that has a couple of miters on it for last, but I just discovered that I didn't order enough miters. I'm short one inside miter. So what I'm going to do, so that we can at least progress and not have water pouring out the end of our gutters, I'm going to put one miter up and put an end cap on it, and then when my other miter gets here sometime next week, we'll go ahead and put up the other miter and finish off that end of the gutter. But to get things progressing, we're going to do this. It's going to be a temporary thing, and I'll show you next how to hang a downspout. Okay, so now we're going to do a downspout drop from that outlet down this wall on the outside of the wall to the ground, and we'll have a kick out at the bottom. Later on we're going to come in and put some pavers, and we may put a French drain in, but for the moment we're just going to have a kick out. To do this, we are going to need a 10-foot section of downspout, and we're going to need an extension to go from the bottom of the gutter over to that downspout. We'll need two 72-degree elbows, which you see sitting over on the ground, and one 72-degree beaded elbow, also known as a ground elbow. It's just got a reinforced bead on it that makes it a little bit stouter, a little bit more resistant to denting. We'll need a couple of downspout brackets. Downspout brackets should be used more or less one downspout bracket for every 10 feet of downspout, even though the stationary section of downspout we're going to use here is going to be less than 10 feet. We're using two brackets. Those brackets come with the screws. If you're going into wood, you could pre-drill the holes for those using the 5/16 drill bit, but since we're going to masonry, we need to use masonry anchors, and that's going to necessitate the use of a hammer drill. So, tools that we're going to need for this step of the operation: hammer drill with a 5/8 inch bit, screw gun drill with a number 30 drill bit for our pop rivets. We're going to need a rubber mallet more than likely, obviously a tape measure, pop rivet tool, and my pair of channel locks just in case I need them for something. So let's get started. Okay, since we have my anchor in place, next we're going to put in the stud for the downspout bracket. Now it has a beveled area around here that you could put a small wrench on if you wanted to. The business end of it is like a lag bolt. Again, if you're going into wood, you probably want to pre-drill that around 5/16. I found that for masonry, excuse me, a 5/8 masonry anchor works great. The other end of it has a T20 star drive for your screw gun, so it makes it real easy to install it. So we're going to run this in now. Okay, now I use actually the beveled portion of the stud to determine my depth, so it should be pretty darn close. Once I set it in place, I can measure it and make sure it has the offset I want it to be. So this is a downspout bracket. They're pretty simple. It's a little clamshell. It opens and closes, has a thumb screw to tighten it down on the downspout, like so. One thing I found is that occasionally the thumb screw is supposed to have a little disc here to keep the screw from falling out. On one or two I found that it didn't have that little washer, so if it doesn't have the washer, pay attention to where you put your screw. You don't want to lose it. And to put these on, all you do is thread it on there. About this height. Right there. good shape. All right, so I went ahead and temporarily put this piece of downspout on the wall. It's going to help me find a center dimension so I can calculate how long this downspout drop over here needs to be. All right, so I determined the length of my connector needs to be about 26.5 inches. I've already cut it to length and peeled off the plastic. And now I'm going to go ahead and put the elbows on it. So a couple things about elbows. If you look at the Zambelli elbows, the one end is always going to have a flare, and it may be hard to see in this picture, but it actually flares out. That's where a pipe is fit inside. The other side is slightly reduced, and that's so it can fit inside another pipe. Well, because water always flows downhill, you want the pipe that's going down to always go into the other pipe. So this section will go into the next pipe below it. So this is going to connect to the drop outlet up above. So this needs to go into one end of our pipe. And the thing about downspouts is they have a seam on them. You always want to put the seam, if the pipe's running at an angle, you want the seam up. If it's coming down the wall, you want the seam towards the wall so it's not visible and won't be bothersome. So we've got to fit this one inside, and these can be a little pain in the butt. You gotta kind of wiggle them around, push, and manipulate it until it goes in. But once it goes in, it fits really snug. In fact, it fits so snug that the only place I generally will use a pop rivet on a downspout is at the very top to connect it to the drop outlet, and I will use a pop rivet down at the very bottom at the elbow that kicks out the ground elbow to get it fixed. I'll say this, on this installation so far I haven't riveted any of my elbows at the bottom in place because, again, we're going to probably be putting in French drains, and I want to be able to adjust them to accommodate that. The final decision has not been made. Alright, so let's put our other elbow on. And make sure you don't use your ground elbow at this point, because with that big flare on there, it's not fitting into anything. So send it off to the side. And this is going to be at the bottom, so this has got to fit inside this elbow. A little bit of a burr there yet, but let's see what happens. There it goes. And at this point, because you haven't used any rivets, you can still spin the elbows and get them lined up where they look pretty straight. This has just got a carrot twist to it, so remove that. And now what we're going to do is go up on the roof and trial fit it in place, make sure it's lining up with our downspout, and we don't have to trim this pipe. And this should come over. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to attach this downspout to the outlet. One pop rivet right there should be plenty strong enough to hold it. When we pull this around, it's going to flex this back a little bit towards our downspout location. Okay, so I've cut my downspout, and we're going to put it in place. So a little bit about downspout length, and this is more of a what works for you than a hard set rule is that what you need to measure is from where the reduction on this elbow is to the ground, and then decide how far off the ground you want your downspout elbow at the bottom to be. In my case, I want it to be 2 inches. So the length of the downspout is about 7, so we subtract 9 inches from this dimension to the ground, and it'll put it exactly where I want it. You may want it higher, you may want it lower. One thing you don't want to do is have it in contact with the ground. So once you have it cut and you have your elbow on the bottom, just slide it up into place, set it where it needs to be, put this clamshell on it, and tighten these suckers down. And note, I did say that I leave the elbows at the bottom loose. At this point you can name it, change the direction of where you want it to go. As I mentioned before, we're probably going to put in French drains here, so for the moment I'm just leaving them loose and pointing them in the general direction I think it needs to be to divert water. Okay folks, so that's more or less a complete installation of a gutter. We have hangers including how to set slope. We've got gutter connectors, we've got miters, we have a downspout drop at one end, and other than the fact that I didn't order enough miters, this would be complete. But as you can see, it's pretty simple all together. I think it probably took me about 3.5 hours or so to do this. Bear in mind that I was moving the camera and operating the camera at the same time, so that added to my time frame. In any case, if you have any questions, give us a call. We're happy to help out and give you some advice on how to plan your gutters. Well, thanks for watching our video today. For more great videos, visit us on our YouTube channel at RapidMaterials or our website, rapidmaterials.com. Try to get new content for you as often as we can. Got a lot of great tools and a lot of products to offer. Again, if you have any questions about installing a Zambelli gutter system, give me a call. I'm happy to help you out, help you figure out what materials you need, and we appreciate your business. Have a great weekend.